So the way these Chinese are is the way their politics is structured. You have the guy at the top, right? And that guy says, you know what, in 10 years, I think China should be the best TV maker in the world, right? That's all he says. Doesn't do anything else. All of a sudden, the provincial guy in Guangzhou calls his ICE automaker. Say, Oga have said we need to do EV.
Which is equivalent to governor.
Yeah, which is equivalent to governor, right?
Yeah.
So, and we need to do EV. What are you doing about it? What do you need? Because that guy, governor, knows that in order for him to get promoted in the party system, he needs to generate that EV company. It's not a VC system. It's a different system. Sometimes people often forget. They say, oh, China allocates capital and chooses the winners. So 140 people, you have $1 billion market, go and kill yourself. Right? So they go in, right? They compete, right? Properly, internally in that market. People, some die, some don't survive, some swallow the other ones. Then the BYD will now come out of that fight. So you go through a hunger game of capitalism and competition. So I said something during one of my Nairametrics articles when I said China is a lot more capitalist than people think. And I got a lot of pushback. This is what I was trying to articulate, but I didn't say it long enough. The podcast wasn't long enough for me to have this conversation. I'm like, the competition that exists within the Chinese market, you only see the champion. So when the champion shows up, right, he has fattened up from the fight, right, and then he's able to take on the world. So that's why BYD is only able to deliver better vehicles with better performance and cheaper price than Tesla can.
If you look at other parts of the world where capital has worked and where you think that, which model do you think we can mirror that is closely related to that of Africa? China, India?
Yeah, I mean, the Chinese have done a remarkable job of incubating businesses. They've done it right by basically is a government-led, privately facilitated startup ecosystem, right?
I love that.
Right,
Can you take that again?
It's a government-led, privately facilitated growth engine. What do I mean by that, right? It just sounds like grammar. So the way these Chinese are is the way their politics is structured. You have the guy at the top, right? And that guy says, you know what, in 10 years, I think China should be the best TV maker in the world, right? That's all he says. Doesn't do anything else. All of a sudden, the provincial guy in Guangzhou calls his ICE automaker. Say, Oga have said we need to do EV.
Which is equivalent to governor.
Yeah, which is equivalent to governor, right?
Yeah.
So, and we need to do EV. What are you doing about it? What do you need? Because that guy, governor, knows that in order for him to get promoted in the party system, he needs to generate that EV company. So he goes to the gas maker saying that the big man has said EV, I don't want my province to be behind.
Yeah.
What are you doing to do EV? That one will now come. Right, and Obasanjo did this with Dangote. So, right, that one will now come and say, okay, for me to do EV, I need capital. I need this. I need that. I need this. Right? What then happens is you then start your own EV. But Governor B is not happy that you have started your own EV. So he calls his own guy. Right? Saying that guy has started his own EV. So all of a sudden, you have 140 EV companies that just gets born overnight. It's not a VC system. It's a different system. Sometimes people often forget. They say, oh, China allocates capital and chooses the winners. So 140 people, you have $1 billion market, go and kill yourself. Right? So they go in, right? They compete, right? Properly, internally in that market. People, some die, some don't survive, some swallow the other ones. Then the BYD will now come out of that fight. So you go through a hunger game of capitalism and competition. So I said something during one of my Nairametrics articles when I said China is a lot more capitalist than people think. And I got a lot of pushback. This is what I was trying to articulate, but I didn't say it long enough. The podcast wasn't long enough for me to have this conversation. I'm like, the competition that exists within the Chinese market, you only see the champion. So when the champion shows up, right, he has fattened up from the fight, right, and then he's able to take on the world. So that's why BYD is able to deliver better vehicles with better performance and cheaper price than Tesla can. What the US will say is that, okay, we want to do EVO, throw as much money into Tesla as possible, give them as much subsidy as possible. Obviously, that lends itself to corruption and all those kind of stuff,
Sure.
right? I'm not saying the China system is corruption free. It's not, but it's a lot more competitive. And success in my head, I'm not ideological in terms of political systems, right? I like democracy because it gives me the opportunity to get rid of bad people, right? That's the only thing I like about democracy. But what society needs is the ability for the best people to compete at the very top. How do we create a system that ensures our best people are our champions? Right? You can do it in a democratic system if everybody is very well informed, very well educated. You can do it. Or, right, you can do it in a China type of system that allows best ideas and allows competition. And then the big guys. So that's why when you see the Chinese, the guys that you face in China, they've been through an internal war. You're facing the best of the Chinese. So are you surprised that they are messing with the rest of the world the way they are messing with the rest? It's not a surprising thing. That's their own model, right? I think it's an admirable model. I'm not saying Nigeria should copy it. We should look at our own history, right? And figure out what has worked for us in the past. This is a society of great empires. We had the Benins, right? We had the Kanem Bonuns, right? We had the Oyos. These were civilizations. How did we do things that got us to that acclaim before we had these 400 years of bastardization that was slavery and colonialism? We need to think about the growth model that worked for Africa, right? And it requires a lot of philosophical thinking. It requires a lot of introspection. Frankly, I think it requires therapy because we need to get away from the mental block that slavery and colonialism has created for our people.
So that's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in, honestly, because it just further crystallizes the idea that there is more to the result than what we see. Because we always see China as the manufacturing hub of the world, not knowing that the guys who are exporting to the rest of the world have gone through a series of battles before being unveiled. It's more or less like
battle tested.
Yeah, more or less like Olympics.
Yeah.
So do you think, I know but I know you have a likely solution for the African continent.
I don't do.
Which model do you think is most likely going to work? Do you think we should take that hook, line, and sinker?
No.
What do you think is?
We always, again, like this democratic system that the West has imported and given us to run.
You feel it's not the best?
Well, we have experimented on it since independence, and it's not worked, right? And insanity is doing the same thing over and again and expecting a different result. We can have systems that have elements of democracy. My priority, economically speaking, I'm not talking from the perspective of political freedom, etc., etc. That's a separate conversation.
Very true.
But when I think about it from an economic perspective, is how do we build a system where our best people thrive? Today, that's not the case in Nigeria. Who is thriving? The rentopreneurs, right? It's basically somehow we've built a society where when you are growing up, right, there are some guys that are at the back of the class, noisemakers, and everybody doesn't take them seriously. The girls don't like them. They don't take their school seriously. And you are like, oh, these people are just doomed to fail. And then fast forward 20 years, 30 years, they are governors. What kind of society is that?
Whoa.
Meanwhile, the guy that got A parallel and you should be funding his idea on how to take on and elevate Nigeria, that guy cannot even find work. Or the best ones leave the country because they are frustrated by the place. So we've created a system that negatively selects our worst people to lead us. And then we look back and say, we are not moving forward. It's a joke now. So we really need to go back and introspect on the sort of society we want to be. If this is what it is, and then everybody will vote with their feet, right? The ones that are really, really good, we go and contribute their skills elsewhere. And this is what we are seeing. The guy who came first in class, like I in my secondary school chat, right? I think there are probably about, like, let me just assume like 200 people in the chat. Of those 200 people, about maybe 20 of them are doctors. Right, I look through the charts. There's no single Nigerian number of the doctors. They're all abroad, contributing their skills to other people's society, because we've built a society that completely marginalizes them.
So, is this a system problem?
Yeah, systemic. Yes. Yeah.
How can it be solved?
Again, it's good question. I don't have easy answers, right? If I
Tell us the hard ones.
If I have easy answers, then yeah, it will be easy. I would just say do this and it's better. I don't have easy answers, but I think again, it's a leadership issue. But then the question is, how do you effect leadership change when the leaders are benefiting from a system that is suboptimal? Right. It's a challenge. It's a big problem. So you need like, I often say, right? Because like, I don't like this concept of revolution, because nothing good comes out of it. Like the whole place, very rare. I mean, there are only few, maybe the French Revolution was successful, but usually what happens in Nigeria is competition for power and influence. So the people who are leading the revolution, they are leading the revolution because they've been cut out of the national cake. So right? And then, and then when they now become in power, they become even worse than the people, or sometimes lives are lost, properties are lost. As a capitalist, I don't like that, right? So I don't want that. I think oftentimes what brings about change is competing influence within elite circles, right? So I look at the UK, for example, which is or like almost like my second home country, because that's where I got educated and that's where I got my professional experience before I came back to Nigeria. And I asked myself, how did the UK become developed, right? How did we go through this journey that we see the society? Obviously, there's a part of it where we went to go and basically rape everywhere in the world, right? But we don't like to say that out loud, right? Sure. There's also the part where they could have raped everywhere in the world, and then the UK elites will just keep into their pockets, and you won't see any development.
True.
That could have happened.
You're correct. Yeah.
Right? Why did we see development? Why did we see? It's a good question to ask. I think what happened, right, was you had the aristocracy, right, which is the kings and the dukes and the whatever, right? The aristocracy, being aristocrat, they didn't want to be the merchants. They didn't want to be the one going to India and going to loot the place. So they didn't want to be the one going to Africa and going to loot the place. So they sent below aristocrat type of people. But when those guys turned up in India, they created unimaginable wealth. In order to protect that wealth, they were like, I can't bring all this money back so that the king and his boys will come and take it.
Yeah.
Right? We need to create a system that is fairer. How do I do it? Let me go to Stratford. All those below proletariat is the word they use for them. All those people. Let's create a system that is fair. Let's advocate for democracy so that we can check the power of this monarch. Yeah. Right? And that's what now brought, so obviously the king, there was a war and the king lost, right? And then they were like, okay, how do we create a fair system? That's how parliament was created. That's how we then have a democratic system that represented individual rights. So it's out of elite self-interest that brought UK development, in my view, right? We need to have an elite group, right? Because elites are the ones that have resources. I know people hate that word, right? Because of how bad our elites have been.
Yeah, true.
Right? But elites are the ones that have the resources. They are the ones that at least police will be afraid to arrest when wahala comes.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
Right? And so you need to have enough elite incentive to say, you know what, let us have a system that works. What does that mean? You need to tie elite success to a functioning system. That's not what we have today. Most of the people we call elites firstly got their money in government, and government basically got their money from oil rent up until recently that things are changing a little bit. So those guys, Nigeria could be burning for all I care. Their pocket continues to get lined. Why do they care? But when you now have people who are entrepreneurs, the Aliko Dangotes of this world, do you think Aliko, right, for all his monopolistic behavior that people talk about, do you think the guy will let Nigeria burn?
Never.
He can't now. So imagine you have 10 of them, 20 of them, 50 of them. Then they start to think, for self-preservation, my wealth, my source of influence is this society.
Sure.
So I need to do whatever I need to do to protect this society. So again, like, it sounds a bit more, I don't like to be accused of elitist thinking, right? I'm not confident that popular uprising, popular revolution will bring the change that Nigeria desires. It is why things like this competition, I mean, for all your conversations, I don't want to say political things, but having this Peter Obi movement, having, in the end of the day, it adds to elite decision making. Because even Tinubu, for all his strength and power, and he's done a lot of good things, to be fair, and bad things, but economically, I think he's done
We're
well.
going to go into that.
He's looking behind his back now. Because there's a competing alternative that is saying that if you mess up, I'm happy to take your position. So what we need is elite competition, and we need to figure out a system that engineers it. It's not a vote of confidence that Obi is competent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? But what he does is that he provides an alternative that he points to that even keeps the incumbents on their toes. Society benefits from that type of competition.